Hello, everyone. Once again, happiest of Fridays to all of Broncos Brawl listeners. Hope everyone is staying safe and doing well at home on this wonderful July evening. As always, my name is Keegan Hartman, and you can find me and follow me on Twitter at KeeganHartman1. And quick note before I introduce my co-host. So we are doing a giveaway at 500 followers. I kind of teased today, and Alex, you're listening to this, obviously, and Byron will probably be joining us soon, and I'll get him caught up to speed. But I teased today a certain piece of merchandise or apparel, you could take your guess, that we will be giving away through the Broncos Brawl Twitter handle, Twitter account, what have you. Try to stutter too much. Once we get to 500 followers, we're going to have that drawing take place, but we got to get to 500. We are at 451 right now. So long story short, make sure you go follow us on Twitter at Broncos Brawl, on Instagram at Broncos Brawl Pod. And yes, that giveaway will be exclusively to our Twitter followers, but hey, it would not hurt you to follow us and like us on Facebook. Surprisingly, we are still in the Facebook game at Broncos Brawl Podcast. So go like it over there and get caught up to speed with all the news. We pretty much break everything on every single outlet. Noah Smith, our lead social media guy, does a heck of a job getting everything up to date. So props to him. Thank you, Noah. Big shout out to you. But we got a show to do, so right back to it. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a former Mile High Huddle writer and contributor. Joining me this evening from the Colorado area, right down the road from Dove Valley, he is Alex Valdez. Alex, how is your Friday evening, my man?
Dude, it's not as bad as yours, considering you're dealing with humidity. But, I mean, there is, you got to pick your poison. It's super dry and hot, or it's super muggy and hot. So, I mean, it's so bad.
You know, it's funny you bring it up. Our AC unit went out, so we have to get a new AC unit for the house. And so I think this week I've probably dropped 5 pounds just by sitting in my house. So I found a cool space I think I'll be able to manage for this episode. Well, I'm glad you're doing okay. And before the show, I know you said your 4th of July was good. 4th of July was good. Everything went great. I'm assuming.
For sure. I mean, got to light off some illegal fireworks, which I shouldn't have, but, got to live life. So,
live on the edge, man. America. That is the definition right there.
Exactly.
Byron should be joining us maybe soon, more than likely, but we're going to carry on. And if he pops in, and we'll just roll with the flow. So, yeah. So let's get right into the news, Alex. Let's go ahead and discuss one of the bigger stories of the week, and that is on Tuesday. You know the name, Mr. Mike Shanahan, Coach Mike Shanahan, who coached 14 seasons for the Denver Broncos from 1994 to 2008, was inducted into the Ring of Fame. Now, I wanted to get, and if he does join in, as soon as he pops in, I'm going to be asking him these questions because our co-host, Alex, Byron Chamberlain, played under him for 6 seasons. So he knows a little bit or two about Mike Shanahan's philosophies and how he coached. You know, this guy deserves this, but he deserves way more, Alex. I think he deserves a spot in Canton, Ohio, in which there's only, I believe, last I checked, was 9 Broncos, be it players and staff. Pat Bowlen, the owner of the Broncos, also, that's who I'm including. 9 in the Hall of Fame or in Canton right now for the Broncos. I'd love to make it 10. With Mike Shanahan adding in there. Just going down the list before I get your perspective on this, Alex, I wrote down some accolades from Mike Shanahan. I even tweeted some of them out. So first, obviously, he helped the Broncos to win in 1997 and 1998. He also won a Super Bowl with the 49ers as an OC in 1994. And then Shanahan also finished with a record of 138 and 86 in his 14 seasons as the head coach for the Denver Broncos, including a postseason record of 8-5 overall. And of any coach with the Broncos, Shanahan's 138 wins remains the most wins of any coaching tenure within the Broncos organization, as well as the best win percentage of any head coach in the organization's history, that winning percentage being 61%. And then finally, he is the 15th winningest coach in NFL history with a record of 170-138. So, I mean, not too bad, but am I wrong to say, I might be a little biased when I say he deserves more than the Ring of Fame. It's nice, but he deserves a Hall of Fame spot. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex. Are you on the same page, man?
Yes, I am on the same page. What you didn't, I guess what's not written in, Canton is the fact that this guy, maybe he didn't start the West Coast system, the West Coast offense, but I mean, he certainly added to it, just taking all those cues from Bill Walsh in the, the 80s. I mean, this guy, obviously, he had not the greatest stint in Oakland, which, if he did, then we wouldn't have had him in Denver. But, man, not only that, but, I mean, we're talking about a guy who, made famous the scripted first 15 plays of an NFL game and then, really just taking off the game that way. I mean, there's so many things this guy did for the game itself, really expanding on the zone blocking scheme, all of it. I mean, this guy really did add a big piece to the NFL.
You bring up a good point with the zone blocking scheme because that philosophy has been adopted. You look at his son, Kyle Shanahan. He's got that going for him, and he's had that with him for the longest time in his run game. It's been successful. I mean, he's had 2 Super Bowl appearances, although not wins, as the OC for Atlanta, and then, of course, this past year as the head coach for San Francisco. So the philosophies that Coach Shanahan has brought to the game, 100% I agree with you. He has brought so much to the game with how he curated and how he orchestrated the Broncos in the 90s and then in the 2000s, talking about his success. Of course, he has 3 Super Bowl championships. He produced guys. I want to bring this up. I really didn't want to bring it up. Now I'm going to bring it up because it is an interesting note. You think about.
Let me guess. Is it going to be these 1,000-yard rushers?
No. That is another good point. But no, that close, but no cigar. So of these people I mentioned in the Hall of Fame, I mean, take it with a grain of salt if you want. 6 of these 8 Broncos played under Coach Shanahan. Shannon Sharp, Terrell Davis, John Elway, Champ Bailey, Gary Zimmerman, and then, of course, Steve Atwater coming in with the 2020 class. I mean, that might say a little bit of something. To me, I think it says a lot about his coaching philosophy and what he was able to do with the Broncos in the longest for the 14 seasons that he was with them. And then he played with guys like Joe Montana, of course, not Joe Montana, Steve Young. I want to say he coached with Steve Young in that 1994 season. I believe Montana would have been with the Chiefs in that season, but definitely been around a lot of great personnel nevertheless, and has coached a lot of great talent we've seen in Canton. And now I think truly it's time for Shanahan to get his time.
Not only that, he gifted us, one of the biggest trades at the time and really in NFL history, trading, Clinton Portis for Champ Bailey. I mean, who does that at that time, especially because, Clinton Portis went on to go have himself a nice career in Washington. But I mean, like I was mentioning earlier, the guy just, I mean, if you played under Mike Shanahan, it was almost expected that you rushed for 1,000 yards every season. And this is in an era where, it was still ground game centric, where the game was still slanted toward the defense. In a way, you can't really get away with hand fighting as you used to outside. But I mean, if you played for Mike Shanahan, you were going to rush for 1,000 yards for the most part.
I mean, I was gonna save this question, but I'm certain that you probably have an answer to this. A moment that, and like I said, if Byron joins, I'm gonna be asking him some of these questions. But one I want to ask you, maybe a fondest memory if you had one. I'm sure this would probably be way different for a guy like for Byron since he was around him all the time. But do you have any memories of Coach Shanahan? I mean, like something that you will remember him by. I mean, of course you weren't as close as Byron, is what I'm saying. But I mean, like, as a fan, what do you gravitate towards the most with Coach Shanahan and his philosophies? Do you have a memory in mind, if any?
I mean, actually, I kind of do. It's more of a collection of memories. Just a collection of memories from his former players, like Byron, as if he joins us. I mean, every single one of them just said that the guy understood his team. He understood his players. He understood, the feel of the game at the time. Pulling Jake Plummer and putting in Jay Cutler. I mean, it ended up working out for the most part. Mind you, I would have liked to see Plummer finish out that season, but I mean, just the fact that he didn't overwork his guys when, and then he did work them when the occasion called for it. I mean, I think that's what really separates the great coaches from the Hall of Fame coaches. You're talking about a guy like Gary Kubiak, who, man, the managing he did in 2015 was incredible, and he learned a lot of that team building and leader of men kind of stuff from Mike Shanahan. And I can't say that his son has learned that yet, because I mean, we all know his famous downfalls when it comes to leads and all that, but
no pun intended. Oh god.
Anyways, but the fact is, I mean, we're talking about a guy who, he added some incredible stuff when it came to X's and O's, but I really think his managing of, 36-year-old quarterback who, is really just on the tail end of his career, the fact that he was able to get the best out of John when it called for it, best out of Bubby when it called for it, the best out of, I mean, how many Hall of Famers did he find, create, and, just bring out their full potential in both those seasons? Man, I just can't say enough about who he is as a leader of men.
I think you bring up a good point, because it was going to be my next question. Was it truly without Mike Shanahan at the coaching position, head coaching position for the Broncos in that 97-98 season, do you think that the Broncos even have a chance of winning the Super Bowl back-to-back at that point? I mean, you can answer that first, but I think from what you're saying, I could gather a no.
I mean, Bubby Brister did play within those 2 seasons. He had some significant playing time. And, I mean, let's compare Bubby to Osweiler. And if that's the case, then the fact that Osweiler went on to play after the Broncos and was a nobody, mind you, I would have loved to see Bubby play post Elway. But the fact that Osweiler went on to play and was a nobody without Kubiak, the fact that we didn't get to see Bubby really shine without Shanahan, I think that right there just tells you managing without a Hall of Fame quarterback at the helm. That is more about, the team coming around. I mean, I'm sure Byron would chime in and say, it wasn't just the quarterbacks, which of course it wasn't. I mean, look at all the Hall of Famers on that team. Good God. But the fact that, I mean, someone's got to put that team together. Someone's got to put those players in the right position. Someone's got to come up with the right game plan. Someone's got to come up with those 15 scripted plays to start the game. I mean, I would be hard pressed to say that they would be back-to-back champions in 97-98 without Mike Shanahan.
Wow. I mean, wow. Great. I honestly, I don't know what to say to that, because I'm like, part of me is like, if he's not in that position, I don't know what John Elway did. I mean, yes, there are a lot of Hall of Famers in there, granted, but without him being at that head coaching position and bringing out that potential in those guys, plugging it, knowing where everybody fits, bringing out the fullest potential, as you alluded to, I think that, if you aren't the person, if you don't have the controller, there's just I don't feel like there's a chance there. Maybe with the Hall of Famers and the experience, but I don't know, man, because I just feel like it was sort of, and I hate saying this because I'm going to get so much backlash for it, but any great coach and quarterback connection, without Belichick, Brady doesn't thrive, vice versa. Without Bill Walsh, Joe Montana, Bill Walsh doesn't thrive, vice versa. You can have these different arguments about different coaches and their connections, and I feel like these guys just mesh with that conversation. I think Mike Shanahan and John Elway are peanut butter and jelly, and I think if you don't have the other, then it's just there was no recipe for success. I think that you might just have missed your mark.
Right. I mean, yeah, you can throw in, any running back at the time, and he's going to get you 1,000 yards under Mike Shanahan. But Mike Shanahan, and a lot of it goes into trusting his coaches to do their job. And Gary Kubiak found Terrell Davis. There's a difference between a 1,000-yard rusher every season and a 2,000-yard rusher. So the fact that the guy, I can't say enough about his ability to lead men. The guy empowered everyone around him. He understood. Just from the stories I've heard, he had a hat day, just to let his guys, just take the day off from banging on each other during practice. And, they responded to that. These are grown men responding to a hat day. So, the fact that this dude was able to do that with, guys who have been to Pro Bowls, guys, a Hall of Famer in the making, who was a first ballot, should have been, was first ballot Hall of Famer. What else do you want from the guy? The guy was giving you everything he could give you. And on top of that, he was one of the greatest X's and O's coach there is.
Well, to put a pin in this, the best conclusion to this is I hope that Coach Shanahan finds his way into the Hall of Fame. And like I said, I cannot say this enough. If and when Byron joins this call, oh my gosh, this is going to be, it'll be neat to just get his perspective. And even so, if we have to talk about it next week, I just want to see what Coach Shanahan was like as a person. Of course, Byron spending 6 seasons or so around Coach Shanahan. I want to get that perspective. So we'll put a pin in it and anticipate and hope for the best. But we got to transition into more news, and that being news that kind of developed today. So according to ESPN NFL insiders Adam Schefter, Adam tweeted on Twitter, obviously, that Broncos safety Justin Simmons officially accepted his franchise tender and is expected to sign it sometime this weekend. He was one of the remaining 5 franchise players as of today who had yet to sign their tender, but now obviously that leaves only 4 left on the table. If you wanted to know, those 4 are Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones, Jags edge Yannick Ngakoue, Bucks linebacker Shaq Barrett, and Bengals wide receiver AJ Green. So negotiations from both sides, being the Broncos and Simmons, are expected to carry on all the way up until the league's deadline for franchise tag players to agree on long-term contracts, which expires next Wednesday, July 15th. As it stands, Simmons is sitting on a crispy 1-year, $11.4 million salary, but expected to go up within the coming days. Alex, I ask you, do you see this deal getting done before the deadline hits on July 15th, given the fact, I believe Mike Kliss was the one who reported it on Twitter, not really reported it, but kind of mentioned it, with everything kind of going on in the sports economy, if you want to put air quotes around that, this might be a little bit more difficult, but I really don't see that gibberish getting in the way of them coming to an agreement. What say you?
Man, I'm as lost as everyone else. We all know what signing the tender means. It means, that's Justin's way of saying, okay, I'll come to the table. So now that he's come to the table, will the Broncos come to the table? They've already said that, losing him is not an option. You don't lose an all-pro. The guy's an all-pro. You don't lose him. I don't think that his deal should be really any much different than his tender right now, which is, 11.44 mil. Mm-hmm. But you add, a couple mil to that. Just comparatively to other safeties in the league right now, the guy is invaluable. So valuable. Look what he did just in the offseason, just gathering all of his teammates, gathering them all for workouts. And on top of that, now you're adding in the fact that what the guy does for the community, it's next level. Not only that, add onto the fact that he's your, Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. Man, the guy he's doing everything right. He can play in the slot. He can occasionally hit some guys outside as a cornerback. The guy has played multiple positions. You want him as a dime backer. You want him as a nickel cornerback. You want him as a strong. You want him as a free. The guy does it all for you. And, losing that kind of leadership in the back end, when now you finally found your quarterback and now is the time to support that quarterback with a strong defense, you don't want to lose that right now. So getting to the table and just saying, let's get a reasonable deal done. Because, at the end of the day, I am still organization first, because unfortunately, one guy making so much money, which, we can get into a little bit later. One guy making so much money is, it's really hard to work around unless that guy is just going to drag teammates with him, like we've seen Aaron Rodgers do time and time and again until he gets to the playoffs, gets hurt, or his O-line is not that great because now he's got a broken clavicle. So keeping that team cheap, keeping it young, it's great and all, but you have that guy, let's pay him, let's get it done.
So I don't know where to start. So I'm going to kind of start with the competition first, basically go down the line, because you had alluded to some of the top safeties and their salaries. Let's put the S in salaries, shall we? So here are the top four safety salaries and where they sit right now. So Kevin Byard leads the pack. Tennessee Titans safety makes $14.1 million per year. Tyrann Mathieu of the Kansas City Chiefs makes roughly $14 million per year, and then followed by Landon Collins of the Washington Redskins, $14 million per year, and then lastly Earl Thomas of the Baltimore Ravens is making $13.75. I think Justin Simmons' party is, from what I've been reading and hearing and everything, they want to shoot for the stars. They want to make this guy the highest paid safety in the league, and rightfully so. As you alluded to, this guy is the epitome of what a Bronco should be. First of all, he was a steal when he came in from Boston College, drafted in the 3rd round. Second of all, heavily involved in the community. As you said, he's a Walter Payton Man of the Year award watch list. I guess, what would you call that? Representative, if you want. Is that the term?
I think it's a nominee, since everyone nominates their own. You got
it. Good job. And then you look at his production in Vic Fangio's system. He's an Army Swiss knife. He played these, let's put air quotes around this term. He's a coverage safety, as PFF alludes to him as. Over the past year, it's been a heck of a change. 2019, he only allowed 52% completion percentage. It was 52% completion percentage in 2019, comparable to 2018, which was 71%. Last season, he was beyond productive for the Broncos, had 4 interceptions, 15 passes defended, and 93 combined tackles for the Denver Broncos. I think every single stat, every single, tangible, intangible, every single note on this guy, it doesn't hurt you, Denver, to kind of go, yeah, we can give you a couple, maybe a few extra million, and get right to that 14 mark, maybe a little bit more, because you have to face it. He's one of your oldest guys right now. Your secondary isn't really experienced. Yes, you have Kareem Jackson. Yes, you have AJ Boye, and yes, you have an up in the air Bryce Callahan. But other than that, you've got Michael Ojemudia, and then you have Devontae Bosby. It's a fairly young secondary, and I think he's one of the more predominant leaders of the pack, not just in terms of the secondary, but in terms of the entire defense. And I think he's the glue as well. So all signs point to yes with the Magic 8-ball. I think that you got to sit down with this guy and you got to give him his money. Old Dirty Justin.
What I also want to add too is the fact that John Elway has been notorious for getting some great deals done, obviously with the Derek Wolfe deal and the Chris Harris deal. Later on, those guys were, they weren't begging for money, but they were also saying, okay, well, I've outplayed my contract. I'd like a little bit more. Derek Wolfe played his out, and then we saw what happened with Chris Harris. But, I mean, what I don't want this to turn into is a Von Miller situation where you could have paid Von a long time ago, and you waited him out, and then guess what? Von ended up becoming more expensive to where he was, at the time, the most expensive, highest paid defensive player in the game. Add on to the fact that Justin Simmons is not just a coverage safety. The guy will lay the wood. The guy is a sure tackler. The guy, never shies away from, coming up in run support. Let's say, the guy, he loses half a step and he's not the coverage safety that we all have come to love him for. You can move him over to strong safety. Kareem Jackson's not going to be here forever. You can move him over to strong safety and then just start working in another free safety. I mean, the guy can be here for a long time.
Okay, I will ask you this. So let's say, I'll give you two scenarios here. Let's start with worst case scenario. Let's say they're not able to get it done or get a deal done by the beginning of the season. Should we freak out if nothing is done? If both parties just come away from this with him just signing the tender deal, and if so or not, what's your reasoning? Like, should we panic if it just comes away with a 1-year tender? Or is there some sort of light from that?
Not many players like to play under it just because, what assurances are there that you're going to have anything past that? Darrelle Revis liked to play on a couple small deals, and he made himself some huge money. But that's not the way to go. So, you're just going to further piss off someone that you shouldn't be pissing off. The guy, I know we're talking about saying a guy is worth $14.5 million. In today's world, everyone is worth that. Go out and get what you're worth. But in this scenario, in this market, and in this sport and organization, he is worth $14.5 million. So I would start to freak out. All know the number. He wants to become either the highest or one of the highest paid safeties. So let's just get it done. I don't see what the problem is. I would start to worry if it was not done by the start of the season.
Okay, and now let's go to the promising side. Let's say we give him the multi-year deal and he's making his $14.5 million or so over the duration of, I don't know, let me spitball a number. Let's say a 5-year deal, 4-year deal, 4 or 5-year deal. I would venture to say it'd probably be in that ballpark. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you think it'd probably be in that ballpark estimate?
It should be, yes.
Okay. Well, with that being said, what are the expectations for him? Are they higher than 2019? It really doesn't. Really, you can't. Yes, you have to have standards for those guys that are playing that for that much money, but I feel like because of last year, there really isn't much to worry about with Justin Simmons. I think it's just more promising for him and reassuring to him. I think he still performs at a high level, but what are the expectations?
He was a second team All-Pro, right? Wouldn't it be a good expectation to be at least that? What we also don't remember, or something that is lost on the fact, is this guy is playing on a team where the quarterback play was not good at all. So the fact that the defense he's playing in is always on their heels. They're always, going up there and run sport for the simple fact of, the team is trying to run out the clock because the other team's got the lead. How many times did Joe Flacco throw a terrible pass and then you're running the defense out there again and again and again? What is he going to do with a actual good offense? What is it going to do with the lead when the team is just, what is it? We're playing Tom Brady this year, and Tom Brady is losing in the fourth quarter. We don't know what Tom Brady's offense is going to look like. Tom Brady doesn't know what his offense is going to look like under the lights. maybe Tom Brady is pressing and now he's throwing into double coverage, throwing to Gronk, who is now covered by Justin Simmons. Man, I expect Justin Simmons to win over Gronk at this point in both of their careers. So I think the bar should be raised for Justin Simmons.
I wish him nothing but the best. I hope that these two parties can come to a consensus and we get notification of this deal within this weekend, because I truly think it's possible and it's definitely feasible for both sides to come to an agreement, and hopefully it does not have to end on just signing a tender. But I guess we'll see on that one. So speaking of money bags, we're going to segue it. We're going into the AFC. We're sticking with the AFC West. If you haven't, I know, right? I said the same thing when I wrote this out. So if you haven't heard already, Broncos country, unfortunately, there is a team in the state of Missouri that happened to pay their whole entire, I guess, the cost of their team to one player, and that was their quarterback. Mr. Patrick Mahomes had himself a heyday. Signed a 10-year, wait for it, $503 million extension, $477 million in guarantees. It's over 12 seasons, according to Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero. So the structure of this is quite unique because the Kansas City Chiefs, if I can be quite frank, are broke. Like, they were broke going into this whole negotiation. So I was impressed. I believe James Palmer put out it might have been Pelissero. But one of the two put out a format of how this contract was structured, and it's all incentive based. First and foremost, what did you think of this deal? Before I get into specifics here and we talk the deal and talk the structure and everything and shoot the crap, what did you think of this deal? What was your first reaction, Alex? It's probably the same as mine.
I don't think it is, because as sick to my stomach as it is to say this, I mean, he is probably the one player in our division whose game I respect, because, I mean, I want everyone to succeed. I want everyone to get paid. Let's start out there, because, I mean, we have billionaires over millionaires at this point, and not everyone's a millionaire at this point. So that being said, I don't know what Mahomes looks like without Andy Reid, and we don't know what Andy Reid looks like without – I guess, yeah, we do know what Andy Reid looks like without Patrick Mahomes, because, that's his first Super Bowl win. So I think what you're paying Patrick Mahomes right now, you're not paying – if you look at him play the game, for the most part, that first 3 seconds when you're supposed to be getting rid of the football, all that is Andy Reid. That is a beautiful scheme written up by one brilliant coach. After that 3 seconds, that is when that, what is it, 32, 35, I don't know even how much money they paying him. That's when that $35 million comes into play, and that even-keeled, strong-armed, wide receiver playing quarterback, that's when that starts paying off for you. Because, I mean, this, as much as I hate to say it, I mean, this guy has made plays and pulled plays out of his ass that I have never seen outside of guys like John Elway. So, I mean, does he deserve it? Absolutely. I hope that contract now, let me take that back. I pray that contract comes back to bite them in the ass when they go to pay other players. But right now, they locked up something that the Broncos have been looking for since John Elway left, a franchise. That's not a good thing for the Broncos country.
Well, there's promise, Alex. There's definitely promise. I think you gotta give time and see how this Drew Lock, this locomotive, powers through, how it pans out throughout the duration of this season. And truly, I think he could be up there with the big boys given time. Of course, he's not on. I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes is in a class of his own. But if there's one lesson I've learned from this whole conversation is if there is a head coach with a Hawaiian T-shirt, that is a Hawaiian T-shirt wearing person, coach, I guess, if you will, you need to get with them, because they're the ones that help make you the money, especially if you're a quarterback. I went down the line. I looked at previous quarterbacks that got paid 10-year contracts and got paid what was considered lifetime deals. And let's just take a look. Brett Favre, OC was Andy Reid when Brett Favre was with the Packers. Michael Vick, of course, Andy Reid coached Michael Vick when he was with the Eagles. Now, that deal was, I believe, took place with the Falcons. But nevertheless, Andy Reid still coached him. So basically, anybody that Andy Reid has coached at the quarterback position, maybe besides Alex Smith, I don't know, you might find a few names, they're getting paid. They're getting a hell of a lot of money. And Patrick Mahomes just added to that. That's a whole lot of catch-up. I'm scared for the Broncos over because these past few years haven't proven anything good. And so I'm a little concerned. I think I am in the same boat as the rest of Broncos country when I say damn. But the bright side is you have all these different players that you didn't tend to. Of course, you're going to lose some. It happens to the best of us. Chris Jones is already sitting out practically. I expect him to be traded over this during the season, the regular season, before the trade deadline. I predict him to be gone. I just think he wants too much, and the Chiefs can't do it right now, specifically now. And then you have guys like Sammy Watkins, who I think they restructured his contract, but I don't foresee him staying after this season. And then over the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to be looking at losing guys like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. So how are you going to be able to accomplish all that? You cannot have your cake and eat it too. Kudos to you for being able to do all these incentive-based, payouts at the beginning of Patty Mahomes' contract. But it's just going to be difficult in the long term for you guys to maintain what you're trying to accomplish here, and that's a dynasty. So, yeah, great move, but not so great is where I'm at.
Right. I think what we're looking at right now is another, Belichick Brady kind of thing. So, as I stated, those first 3 seconds, that's all coach. That's all scheme. That's all. Here's what I'm giving you. Here's what's supposed to beat the defense. And when that doesn't happen, that's when you start leaning on a Hall of Fame quarterback like Tom Brady to say, okay, well, you should have seen this pre-snap and you should have made this pre-snap read and audible. And, when that doesn't happen, that's when the play breaks down. But you're talking about a guy who, you're talking about 2 Hall of Famers. Add on to the fact now you're moving over to an Andy Reid and a Patty Mahomes who just won. The guy won a consecutive Super Bowl MVP and MVP, vice versa.
So let's talk.
Obviously, the guy has talent. So that first 3 seconds. I mean, we've seen some of these plays just like, why is this guy so wide open? And it's because Andy Reid is just playing with you. And when that doesn't happen, when the defense actually does catch up to Andy Reid, then you're having to deal with Patrick Mahomes just taking off, drifting 20 yards back and still making the play. It's like, it's got to be super frustrating to be a defensive player playing for a good 10 seconds when the play should have ended 5 seconds ago. So he earned his money. It's bad for Broncos, but I mean, it's good for football.
So I guess over the duration of these 10 years is the lingering question. I mean, him getting his money, Patrick is here to stay for a little bit. What do the Broncos' future look like? I mean, if you had to make a prediction on where we're at maybe 5 years down the road, talking AFC championships, let's not get ahead of ourselves. AFC West conference or division championships, and then you get into the conference postseason. I mean, is it just a long uphill battle for the next decade, or is there truly promise? I guess this year might be a deciding factor, but what do you think the roadmap looks like for the Broncos?
There is absolutely no reason where you need to just, sit out a season. There, you play the game because, as cliche and dumb as it is to say any given Sunday, but we have we're putting a lot of our hopes and dreams into Drew Lock right now. And it's amazing what a franchise, game-changing quarterback will do for your entire organization. And, unfortunately, we don't know if that's him or not. If it is, then there is absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be challenging the Chiefs every single year. But, 2020, with all this COVID and everything, it's going to be hard to find out. But by 2021, we'll know if we have a franchise quarterback or not.
100%. Dude, this could be one of the next biggest rivalries. And I said this when the Broncos drafted Drew Lock, and then of course Patrick Mahomes, him having his success at the time. I think this could be esque. It's not exactly what it is, but esque. Like, I think this could be the new Joe Montana, John Elway kind of showdown, at least for these next couple of years. I'm not saying they're to the same caliber, so don't skew the narrative here. I'm just saying that these are two young, promising quarterbacks, one who's already had proven success in the league, the other who's just trying to make a name for himself and has done all the right things, but he's still young. And I think that there is still time for Drew Lock to kind of prove the naysayers. You know, the people talk about the schedule last year. If I'm Drew Lock at this point, I'm so, motivated. I'm so pissed off. I mean, I've got so many things in my head, and this is just icing on the cake, man. I think that this has got to be motivational, not just for him, but this sets the entire QB market. I mean, you look at, and I thought Dak Prescott was asking for a lot. But, I mean, there's a difference. Patrick Mahomes is more worthy of his money. Excuse me. But, yeah, I just think this sets the tone for every quarterback in general, as most deals do. And I think this just gives particularly Drew Lock more motivation to go out there and have a hell of a 2020 season if there is one. And if not, focus on 2021, get this young squad together, and hopefully get the Broncos back into championship postseason contention.
Right. I've compared, Drew Lock to Matt Stafford mostly. He's not the most mobile guy, but I mean, the guy can take off when he needs to. What the comparison comes down to is, one, they're both strong-armed guys, and two, they're not afraid to throw the ball into some dangerous places. Where the difference is Drew Lock has an organization that will put its money where its mouth is, do its due diligence, and actually go out and push to win games. And unfortunately, Stafford's stuck in an embarrassing organization. That being said, if he turns out to be a Matt Stafford type of player, then yeah, we're looking at the next decade full of infighting between, what could be two guys that are pushing for MVP every single year. But again, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. We're dreaming. Again, I would love to have the problem of saying, oh crap, we just paid Drew Lock at the time, $40 million, and now we have to show for it. And like, oh my God, give me that problem all day. The fact that the Chiefs are in this problem right now, I'm sure they'll take that problem over what we have right now. So yeah, if Drew Lock's the truth, then we've got one hell of a rivalry ahead of us.
No pun intended, but yes, you're right. Let us not put the cart before the horse. And let's just see how Drew Lock rides out. Gosh, that meshed so perfectly. All right. So I guess that kind of brings us to a conclusion of this week's episode. Hopefully Byron will be able to hop on next week and join us. And apologies, guys. My fault. Last week I missed these, a couple of the past few weeks, so I apologize, but it's great to, be back and talk football, talk sports. Glad you were able to sit down and talk to me today, Alex. Make sure you go follow this man on Twitter at @V_Broncos. And again, please go follow us on Twitter at Broncos Brawl, our main account. We're trying to get to 500, and if you want some Broncos swag, I almost just gave it away, but if you want some Broncos gear, then you need to stay tuned, because once we hit that 500 mark, man, we're going to be giving it away. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Get yourself involved. Go like us. Go like us on Facebook and Instagram. Follow us. Follow me at Keegan Hartman 1. And with that being said, Alex, unless there is anything else we should add to this, man, I think we could put a pin in it.
No, I hope everyone's staying safe.
For sure. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of Broncos Brawl. Everyone take care and have a great rest of your weekend.